And there may be a counterpart, Sasani being, who would be more than willing to channel through you, but it will not be personally me. I am coming through this channel only. But by allowing yourself to explore different states of being in channeling, in the gamma state in the brain between 40 and 100 cycles per second, you can attract whatever you need, information-wise or experience-wise. But one of the best ways to practice the idea of vocal channeling, if that's what you're referring to, is to surround yourself with a few people that are asking questions that they really, really need the answer to, because in a sense, they act like ground, like electricity going to a grounding mechanism. They, by asking those questions and needing to hear the answer, pull the information through you. So you can kind of get out of the way and not have to really pay attention to what's going on. Because if the information is just coming to you, you don't really have to go into a full channeling state. You can be more conscious of what's going on, receive the information, and simply deliver it on your own to people in your own words if you wish to. But to go into a full channeling state, it's always best to have people asking questions to pull the information through you. And also at the same time, you have to absolutely get out of the way in terms of your negative ego structure. You cannot care what you look like, how silly you sound, or whether you get any information for them at all. You have to just trust the way it unfolds and just keep moving forward. Remember, going into the channeling state is also for you as the channel to clear yourself out of all the things that you may need to let go of. So the process is not just for the information for the people asking questions, it's also for you to go through an experience that helps you evolve as well.
And I believe this person also asked how to interpret it when one notices slight discrepancies or inconsistencies in a channel where it's a source that they otherwise entirely resonate with. What is the best way to sort through that without being thrown off of your faith or belief in or trust in a set of teachings?
All right. Well, first of all, you never have to swallow anything whole. You can decide what works for you and what doesn't in any discipline, including ours. The idea, of course, is that channeling in your reality is not, let's just say, a perfect mechanism. There may be misinterpretations, misunderstandings. There may be a lack of using your language in a way that you would understand it because you have different meanings and interpretations for things. The idea is that sometimes it can simply slip. The idea being that, again, it's not always focused in a perfect way. So there may be what you would call some mistakes here and there that would cause certain discrepancies. At the same time, always look into your own belief systems to make sure you're not coloring the information or misinterpreting the information in a way that you prefer it to be, rather than being open to what is actually being said to you. So you have to really take it on a moment-to-moment basis and just see if something doesn't hit you right. Examine yourself to make sure you're not the one making it go into a different state than you would prefer. At the same time, realize there will always be errors here and there that will creep in from time to time, because no channel is perfect. No channeling medium in that sense, energetically, will always maintain a perfect focus for a variety of reasons. And there are certain things that simply get misinterpreted and or interpreted in different ways than maybe the normal understanding of your world. There may be things that don't make sense now that will make sense later. There are a variety of reasons why things may seem to be a little off kilter from time to time.
Thank you. How might experiences of sexuality continue to shift and evolve as our consciousness evolves?
Well, in many different ways, perhaps, all the way up to what we experience now and beyond, where our activity sexually is no longer exactly physical, but more energetic, in the creation of energy bubbles that interlink, overlap, and create a third life within the overlap. So it's no longer the physical act that it used to be for us, that it still is for you. But again, as you open yourself up in a fourth density, higher vibrational way, you'll be clearer about the reasons for the idea of expressing sexuality, and they will all be more, in your expression, aligned with the positive vibration and less aligned with the negative vibration. You will know perfectly the reasons why you may experience the idea of sexuality, and they will all enhance your ability to evolve forward in the fourth density reality that you're creating.
In the last transmission, you said that our individual processes of transforming darkness and limitation within ourselves is getting us ready for a larger collective project doing the same thing.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that and what is coming up in that regard, and what will transforming darkness and limitation look like on a larger collective scale?
No, it's premature. We will address it when it is the time to address it.
Okay. How did you come up with the discovery of shifting from parallel reality to parallel reality at Planck time frequency, each reality being totally distinct from the others? Are there any indications that this is our ordinary real life experience and you were able to figure that out without labs or complicated computations?
Yes, as we evolved and as we followed our version, our understanding of what we've shared with you called the formula, you raise your frequency in specific ways. And those specific ways extend your senses in specific ways. And those specific ways allow you to actually start to view the structure of existence and how it's actually functioning on different levels. So we simply suddenly became aware of parallel realities in a very tangible way and started becoming more aware as we evolved in the momentum that we created for ourselves of all of the different specific increments that go into allowing physical reality to work the way it does. So it was really a matter of opening up our senses to the point where it became obvious to see things and the structure of existence in a very particular way. And then things simply became as obvious to us as certain things are obvious to you, such as, again, by analogy, if you're holding a red rose and I ask you what the color is, you would simply say red. That's not a philosophy. It's not an opinion. You simply have the ability to see the red color. So the idea is we are giving you the experiences of our observations of what has become obvious to us by the expansion and increase in our sensory abilities to perceive through the barriers and the frequencies that create other realities.
So with the idea that there are many parallel realities and many versions of Earth existing simultaneously,
yes,
how then does each version of me relate to each other? Does this mean my soul copies into many souls?
Not copies, but each version has its own soul, its own higher mind. Again, remember, you're actually shifting to a completely different reality that has its own beingness. It has its own soul, its own purposes. And therefore, it's not that you're copying the soul, but it is dynamically interacting with every version simultaneously, whether you're aware of it or not. So all of the personalities are dynamically and energetically interacting like some gigantic internet. The idea being then that you're simply shifting focus along that interconnected web to experience the idea that you're changing billions of times a second into different versions of Earth or other parallel realities.
Okay, and this person says, I get confused about who is inside of me. I see times when I meld with the ego self, and that leaves me feeling disempowered and fearful. And I see times that I meld with the higher self, which leaves me in a state of empowerment. Who is it? Who is the I doing all this melding?
It is your core identity as an individual reflection of all that is. That never changes. You can experience a number of perspectives, but you're always going to experience it as you. So even when you're a spirit, even if you go to the level of the oversoul, even if you go to the level of all that is itself, you experience that as those things from your point of view. You never lose that particular perspective because you're one of the reflections, one of the ways that all that is has of experiencing itself. So the experiences you're having of disempowerment or empowerment is all happening because you are making choices to buy into certain ideas that then create those experiences. But no matter what the experience, it will always be being experienced by your perspective, which is you as a reflection of all that is, a unique one.
You mentioned that the Sasani are your version of the Wraith, the fifth level of mastery, and that's from the Willa information.
Yes, because we exhibit traits of both physical and spiritual beings. So we are close to the idea that is being expressed in that work that is represented by the stage of the mastery called the Wraith. Similar, not identical, but similar.
So what levels of mastery do the Yael and Shalana or Shayael embody, and are any of them at the Wraith level?
Mostly no, because they have to interact with you in a more physical way. So it's not necessarily their purpose to go into those levels until later on in their evolutionary path. They maintain a certain kind of physicality that will be more vibrationally compatible with humans on Earth when certain changes happen, of course, so that they can present the hybrid children to you and help them learn to live among you. So it's not necessary for everyone to go through those different levels of mastery in any way, shape, or form for them to serve the primary purpose that they've chosen to express.
What do hybrids and grays eat, and will their food practices be brought to Earth? Are there foods that they can eat that humans can't, and vice versa? And if your craft is a living being, are there foods that it enjoys consuming, and what sorts of things does it like?
Well, I'm going to joke with you a little bit and say that it enjoys a light meal. Because really all it's doing is absorbing light, electromagnetic energy in a variety of forms. We no longer eat. We used to, but we've evolved beyond that. However, the grays evolved to a point where they ingested mostly liquids. The Shalanaya, the children that will come to live among you, will retain the ability to eat physically, but it'll mostly be similar to either vegetarian or vegan diets, as you understand it, and would probably be even simpler in terms of the choices of food that they choose, even out of those diets.
Have you successfully managed a challenge as part of your excitement?
It may be either. You have to, again, investigate yourself to understand, but then again, there are things that may occur that you may never understand directly. For example, I can give you the illustration that the car not starting right away may actually have prevented you from getting into an accident. So you have to look at it from a number of points of view, but also don't look at it too hard. Just go with the flow of the way it happens, remaining in a positive state, and you will then get the benefit from it. You will not always know why synchronicity manifests in the way that it does, but you can always take the time to check within yourself to make sure it's not the product of resistance within you to your natural self or to something that you attempt to do. But if you're clear that it's not, then just go with the flow of the way synchronicity presents you the opportunity to move forward.
Why do we need to experience negativity and suffering? Why did we choose to incarnate in a world where there's so much suffering? Why not just stay in heaven?
You can choose to do that, but obviously you want to discover something new and you want to be of assistance in helping people learn to transform the idea of the negativity and suffering and pain into something that is more representative of joy and harmony and ecstasy. So the idea is that you chose to be of service. You chose to learn these ideas so that you could help others. So put that learning into action. Help others learn how to let go of pain and suffering and transform themselves into more joy and harmony by getting in touch with the belief systems that they're holding on to that is causing the resistance, which causes the pain and the suffering, or the definitions that they are holding on to that don't allow them to be themselves. The idea of remaining in heaven is all well and good in spirit, as you say, but there are only certain things that can be experienced in the physical reality experience. Forgetting yourself in order to remember who you are from a new point of view allows you to expand and grow in ways that you can't when you're in a more timeless state. So the idea is that it is a challenging experience, certainly, but it's one absolutely rich with potential to discover new points of view, new experiences, new understandings of all that is in all the ways it can experience itself to be through you.
Okay.
We could simply add the analogy, why do your people go to amusement parks and go on scary rides like roller coasters? It challenges them to get in touch with whatever it is that may be representative of fear, so they may, under a controlled situation, have more ability and effectiveness at transforming that fear because they come out all right on the other end. So you could use that simple analogy for the idea that you've decided to go on a huge roller coaster ride, knowing that as an indestructible spirit, you're going to come out all right on the other end anyway. But in the meantime, you have different purposes for having chosen to be where you are, and most of them have to do with helping others learn how to transform things in more positive ways, along with you learning that lesson as well.
Okay. This individual asks, how do I let go of my unacceptance of negative beliefs and feeling that negative emotions are bad and that there's something wrong with me? I've heard dark has to exist for light to exist, but still I find myself asking, why do we have to experience suffering? I think my unacceptance of negative beliefs is making it impossible for me to let them go. In one communication, you spoke of the neutral zone. How can we get into that neutral state where it's easier to transform things?
Well, the paradox is, as you say, you have to accept the existence of the negative in order to allow yourself to be in the neutral zone where you have the ability to choose what you prefer without invalidating what you don't prefer. And you're mixing up a lot of definitions in there, because you're talking about value judgments and not just a recognition of a mechanism. When we talk about positive and negative, we're not talking about value judgments of good and bad. We're talking about how you're using the energy, how you're using the mechanism. Negative energy, negative beliefs are simply that which make you experience the feelings of disconnection, separation, diminishment, so on and so forth. But this is a mechanism we're talking about. Positive allows you to experience the idea of connection, expansion, engagement. The idea, again, is that we're talking about a mechanism of energy here and how it works. Because remember, you can use negative mechanisms to a positive effect. You're doing that right now by experiencing physical reality. You are a bigger being than what you are as a physical person. So you had to use the negative, so to speak, mechanism of imposing limitations on your consciousness in order to focus yourself into a physical reality. But you're using that negative mechanism in a positive way to have this physical experience. And you are misunderstanding the idea, no one needs to suffer. But if that's what's going to help you learn how to transform it, you will accept that experience until you allow yourself to realize it's not about being forced. It's about having chosen to experience something so that you could learn the lessons from it so that you don't have to experience it again. No one says you have to keep experiencing it. The idea, again, is that when you allow yourself to accept that negative energy, negative mechanisms are valuable and can serve in certain ways that ultimately come out with positive results, then you will, in a sense, allow them to exist. Just because you are aware of negative mechanisms doesn't mean you have to choose them. You can be in the neutral place by accepting that everything, positive, negative, neutral, is valid, because you can use them in so many different ways in the way that you prefer to aid and assist yourself. So when you allow it to be all right for negativity to exist just as a mechanism, then you can remain in the neutral space because you can choose what you prefer without invalidating what you don't. And at the same time, recognize that you may be using many negative mechanisms to positive effect, and sometimes even using positive mechanisms to negative effect. So it depends on how you use it. Rather than focusing on what it is, focus on the idea of how you choose to use the mechanisms for a positive reason.
See. And this person asked also, how can I let go of the core belief that there's something wrong with me?
The idea is that you may not necessarily always align with the path or the vibration that you prefer. But again, that's part of the learning experience. Some people simply, because of their belief systems, have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then they'll change. So you might be using the mechanism of painting yourself in a corner by thinking that something's wrong with you until you finally get so tired of not being yourself and thinking that something is wrong with you that you finally give it up. So that may or may not be the way that you're doing this. But the idea is, if there really was something wrong in the sense that you didn't belong, that you are wrong for being you, for exploring the things and discovering the things that you're discovering, even if they're not in alignment with who you prefer to be. If there was truly something missing from you, something wrong with you, you wouldn't exist, because creation doesn't make mistakes. So whatever story you're telling yourself, whatever journey you're on, there is nothing wrong with you, because you are obviously a creative manifester. You're always manifesting something. You're always confident about something. Even if you're confident that you lack confidence, you're confident about that. So never assume that you lack confidence, that you lack trust, that you're out of control, because even when you feel out of control, or when you feel that something is wrong, you're using your rightness and your control to create that experience for your own purposes, for your own reasons. You may not be aware of those belief systems that create those reasons, but that's why we encourage everyone to get in touch with what they are, because you're using your power to make it seem as if something is wrong with you. And if you don't prefer that, you can just as easily stop and realize that there is nothing wrong with you. You're just exploring different experiences of negativity and positivity in your own way. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, remember, ultimately, you're an indestructible spirit. This is a temporary situation. You'll get over it one way or another.
Why is it that staying in a higher vibration at times is a struggle? Also, are there some ETs helping us in cleansing the negative energy that has kept us from evolving?
We are helping by adding our energy to the vortexes of your planet, and in a variety of other ways to make it a little easier for you to lock into the vibrations that are true for you individually and collectively. But again, the only reason why things may seem difficult to change, or that they are a struggle, is again, your definitions. There is no such thing as an inherently difficult or struggling situation. It's only the way you're looking at it, the way you're defining it, that makes it experienced that way. Look deeply into your definitions and what you're afraid of that would make you hold on to those definitions, because you don't hold on to anything that you believe doesn't serve you. So if you are holding on to definitions that make things experienced to be a struggle or difficult to change, you're holding on to those definitions that make it seem that way because you have a belief that the worst thing possible would happen if you didn't. So you have to reverse that idea within you. You have to know that it's not a fact that the negative belief is telling you something worse will happen if you move forward on your joy. It's just a way it has of, shall we say, persevering, the way of protecting itself, the way of perpetuating itself by telling you things that are not facts, but that scare you into not moving forward. That's just the way it's designed to keep going and make sure you don't let it go, because all beliefs are designed to perpetuate themselves, because if they weren't, you wouldn't have a physical reality experience, because physical reality isn't real. It's a projection of consciousness. It's an illusion. So you have to believe something to be a fact. You have to believe something to be true in that sense in order for you to continue to have a physical reality experience. But you get to decide what you prefer and what you choose to believe in. So never assume that the fear that comes up is necessarily real. It's just the negative belief's way of making sure you don't let it go. You have to see through that trick in order to understand it is just a trick, and that what it's telling you, that something worse might happen if you move forward, is not a fact. It's just a belief, and you can change that.
What frequency do we as individuals need to be vibrating at to reach fourth density? And how far is the current Earth collective from reaching that goal?
It is advantageous for you to be somewhere around 100,000 cycles per second to maintain the momentum of moving into fourth density. Now, the collectivity of your planet, again, remember, you never change the planet you're on. You shift to a new version of Earth that is already reflective of the higher vibration when you experience a higher vibration around you. It's not the same planet. So to give you the answer of what's going on collectively on this version of Earth, or this version, or this is a dynamically moving answer. But right now, let's freeze a moment and say that on your planet, you will find the average vibration is somewhere between 50,000 and 80,000 cycles per second. But there are many that are way above that, but there is a significant number that are well below that. So again, the average for this particular frozen moment is what we just told you. But it's always dynamically shifting and changing, and you're never changing the world you're on. Remember that. You're navigating through different versions of Earth every single moment, billions of times.